WWT presents Experts.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of WWT Experts. I'm your host, Matthew Coble, as usual. And today's show is one in a series that we're hosting to discuss the world of higher education and how universities are embracing artificial intelligence, digital transformation, and other technologies to optimize their operations, power world-class campuses, and really deliver those excellent student and faculty experiences and much, much more. In other episodes in the series, we're going to talk with a student. We may talk with university leaders and others. So if you enjoy this show, please go check out the others out on WWT.com. And today we're talking with two experts from Worldwide Technology about the state of artificial intelligence in higher education. So with me, two colleagues. First up, Janet McIllece is a principal advisor with Worldwide Technology, and she works primarily with our higher education clients. During her 25-year career, she's worked with organizations on business strategy, software development, and systems engineering across really many industries, including, of course, higher ed. In 2022, Janet was awarded EdScoop's Industry Leader of the Year award, and she's long been recognized for her expertise in human-centered design. Also with us, Michael Sink, Chief Technology Advisor for Higher Education at Worldwide Technology. He has over 25 years of experience as well, delivering innovative IT solutions across industries, including higher ed, banking, and healthcare. And prior to joining us here at WWT, he held technology leadership roles at the University of Central Florida and the University of South Florida, and helped both of those universities with their digital transformation journeys. So some great experience here with you. Hey, welcome. I'm glad you're both here.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, well, let's jump in. So, we're talking about the state of AI in higher education. So, what is the current state of AI adoption and maturity across that landscape?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I can take that one. So if you think about AI and new technologies in general and kind of the technology adoption curve, it's really sort of all over the place in higher education. You have institutions that are early adopters. They want to get their minds and their hands kind of into things right away to explore and kick the tires and understand how things work and try things out. Then you have the middle of the curve institutions that don't want to be on the bleeding edge, and they're kind of waiting to see what's going to happen in the space. They know it's important, but they may be kind of lower in the risk tolerance, not wanting to jump in right away, or just may not have funding to explore. So they're kind of middle adopters, moving along with trends. And then you have the later adopter institutions that might be risk averse. They might be really just trying to keep the lights on and keeping institution running and not ready to bring in new things right away. And so they're kind of waiting for shrink wrapped, plug and play kind of solutions. So, they're kind of all over the adoption curve. Plus, what's really unique about higher education is you have in many institutions in-house expertise within their research ranks that have been working with data science, machine learning, and a lot of AI technologies for many years. And so they have working expertise and now are paired up with institutional business and operational leaders that are trying to make decisions about how to bring in these new technologies in the day-to-day operations of how they run institutions and deliver education. So it's an expansive conversation. It's very much a working conversation across the entire space. And remember, higher ed at its core, not only they're delivering education, but they're innovators, right? They want to learn, they're creating knowledge. And so it's such a wonderful pairing of new technologies and new space with a world of knowledge that is really interesting and fun to watch right now.
Yeah, Janet, I agree. There are a lot of institutions that we talk to. They're doing a lot of pilot use cases, and these are typically very simple use cases that use a lot of static data, maybe information from their websites, static content that may be policies or manuals and that sort of thing. And some are adopting some RAG models, some retrieval augmented generation models. So they're getting a little more sophisticated with how they leverage some of that data. And many of the applications, including some of their enterprise applications like some of the modern ERP systems or some of the learning management systems, admissions applications, and even some of the productivity apps like the Microsoft 365 Copilot. They're doing a lot of experimentation with some of the AI that's being built into some of those. But I would say really a lot of the higher ed institutions are still in the exploratory, experimental stage. They really haven't gotten to a point where AI has become operational and transformative just yet. They're still waiting for that to happen.
Yeah. Well, Mike, are you finding universities are excited about AI? I mean, I know there's lots across the university landscape, research, student experience, operations, probably alumni engagement, all the sports stuff. I mean, there's a lot of places in a university context in which AI could be a good tool. Are universities leaning into that? Are they worried about it? Are there barriers? Like, what are some of the drivers that are making people move fast, and what are some things that are holding folks back?
No, they're very excited about it. Initially when Gen AI first came out, there were a lot of folks that were really excited about the innovative capabilities of AI, but there were also those that were concerned about AI's affecting the learning process in negative ways. So instead of chatbots, they were calling them cheat bots. So that's something they were concerned about, especially at the faculty level. But I think as Gen AI has been out for a while now, there's been much more excitement around the innovative capabilities, especially around transforming the engagement and the experience. The barriers to being able to do that is really around the data sources that will allow for the transformative engagement, the personalization of these experiences at scale. There's a lot of concern about the privacy, the security of those data sources, the reality that if those data sources are not properly curated before they're enabled with AI, that they could create bad outcomes. So there's a heavy sense of excitement around it, but I think there's still also some concern about some of the risks of opening up some of those data sources too early before they're ready.
And I would add there's a lot more thinking now also about how to get administrative efficiencies using Gen AI. Along with the students, there's all the back office support structure that it has to come together and really work synergistically to serve students in ways that are meeting their unique situations. So bringing generative AI in particular in ways that will help accelerate outcomes for students, support for students, solving issues for students in places that meet their unique needs. I think it's becoming more and more of a possibility and part of the vision of a lot of these institutions.
Well, Janet, I know that we've had some conversations with a technology leader at a university. Tell us a little bit about who she is in that conversation.
Sure. We spoke with Jessie Minton, who is the CIO of Washington University in St. Louis, and she had some great thoughts around how she has seen sentiments change from the introduction of generative AI, initial excitement and groundswell around it, and how that sort of transitioned into how they're thinking about it today.
Cool. Well, that's great. Well, I know we've got a clip from that conversation, so let's take a look at that.
My thoughts around the initial groundswell of generative AI was really interesting to watch. There's a lot of research been done about the pace of adoption of technologies and speed to 1 million users. Facebook took, I think, close to a year to get 1 million users, and then we moved into Twitter and Instagram. And by the time we hit generative AI, if memory serves, it hit 1 million users in less than 5 days.
That's right.
And which is a fascinating process to watch. And there's certainly in the educational space a deep worry about cheating, a deep worry about intellectual property, and then this incredible groundswell of innovation around what is it that students can use it for? How can we break barriers with new areas of research? How can we create new instructional opportunities? And in the university space, there's also this incredible opportunity to use it to think differently about student success, preparedness, and predictive analytics around how might a student be struggling before they start to have their grades slip or begin encountering other barriers at the university. So I think there are all of those potentials. As we are now close to 18 months into this entirely new technology, I think that the immediate opportunities right now for the academic space are largely in those efficiency-based administrative applications. I think that we're able to do things like create more efficient registration, a better understanding for students of how their course schedules fit together. The student success applications that I talked about, there are some really exciting opportunities in that place. And then, of course, our researchers. I think longer term, the students and the researchers and our faculty are going to teach us what the opportunities may be. But as we all move together to figure out how to balance the fact that our students now have research at their fingertips, curated research, they can have an interactive conversation with a chat GPT or another generative AI tool to get the information that they need. They can get drafts of materials and then edit. So I think it's really exciting. It's interesting to watch the instructional fields in that some of them allow citations for generative AI tools and others don't allow those references at all. So it's really still in that formative space where ethical use hasn't been aligned across the industry in any particular way yet. And as a student and a faculty member, you have to be very diligent about determining which areas allow what sort of reference materials and use of generative AI.
Okay, well, that was interesting to hear. And, I'm curious if you guys can speak to some specific examples of how universities are using AI in their work. And is that really aligning more with, maybe student experience or research, administration? There are a lot of different areas it could exist. But where are you seeing some real examples of that in this space?
I can speak to two. One specifically is in the classroom. There's a lot of work by third-party companies and startups, as well as institutions are kind of doing this on their own, to create virtual teaching assistants in the classroom to facilitate 24/7, available anytime, anywhere, interactions with students to help guide them in their learning with course materials and specific to course materials, so they can ask questions about their assignments if they get stuck. They can help for guidance without having to wait for office hours with their TAs or their instructors. And conversely, instructors get insights and anonymized insights. They can see conversations happening with students, but they get insights into the questions that students are asking yesterday after the last lecture, not necessarily having to wait weeks to see where students aren't doing well in their exam. So they can immediately adjust their instruction. They can address difficult topics it looks like students are struggling with in the next course session. So, and also moderated discussions. They're thinking about having sort of mock interviews, mock debates with students to kind of test out their skills and be able to proctor and evaluate how students do. So that's kind of on the classroom side. And also we're seeing on the administrative side some work even on the IT space where universities are using generative AI to triage incoming service request tickets to figure out which work group will solve them, what kind of issue they are. And so getting trouble tickets routed quickly to the teams that can solve them gets people back online, gets issues resolved very quickly and much more accurately than if you have someone actually curating and having to route things manually and maybe rework. So they can really start to do things at a grander scale in much quicker timeframes. Mike, I know you've seen some really interesting things happening as well.
Yeah, and I think some of the things that we've talked about internal to Worldwide is, we like to share our journey with, how we've adopted AI, and a lot of the universities are taking some of the same approaches. They're taking more of a practical approach where they're adopting an LLM that's already out there. They're fine tuning that. They're augmenting the outputs of that LLM with, again, the RAG model, the retrieval augmented generation, so that they're putting guardrails of data around the LLM so that it's responding to requests in a contextual fashion that's relevant to what the students or the faculty or staff are asking for. So, for example, course catalogs. Universities are highly complex. Many universities have multiple colleges of discipline within the institutions, and so it's difficult sometimes for students or even faculty and staff to find things. So they're using these RAG-enabled LLM models to curate some of the data that's more static but hard to find, so that students, faculty, and staff can leverage those AI like chatbot type agents to find some of that information. So a student who is interested in pursuing a degree in the College of Nursing could say, what are the courses that I need to take for the College of Nursing for a BSN program? And so that AI model would retrieve those results that are specific to that particular institution. And again, to make it easier for those students to find things. And then also to navigate through all of the many services that are offered on a college campus, from housing, from sporting events, from clubs, extracurricular activities. Again, just trying to find things on campus can be very difficult. So that's one of the powerful things that universities have already started to do to help students find things more easily.
And those seems like really good use cases that are out there. Janet, you got another one you want to share?
Yeah, I was going to add, something a lot of universities are thinking about is how to tie all these things together in an experience that's consistent for students. So providing help in consistent ways across all the different departments so that students are taking that information in and have a consistent mental model about how to interact with their university reduces the stress and load on how they find their resources. And institutions are keenly aware that even though they operate in unique departments and unique units, students take that in and experience that as their holistic journey, right? And so to the extent that they can use Gen AI to kind of smooth out their interactions and how they support students and how they help them find those resources that Mike talked about, really, really important for the holistic well-being and success of each of their students.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that artificial intelligence is exciting and moving fast, but it also creates challenges around data privacy, around security. There's certain ethical considerations with AI, and I imagine that those concerns are probably equal, even heightened in a university context. So how are universities thinking about those aspects of their AI journeys?
Yeah, so a lot of universities are proceeding with a good measure of caution because they understand that AI, to really be transformative, is going to need to leverage data sets that are more sensitive. Mm-hmm. Some of those data sets could be impacted by compliance or regulatory requirements, things like controlled unclassified information, PII, even intellectual property that is a result of groundbreaking research, student records. These are all examples of data types that universities want to be able to leverage for a more personalized experience, but those data sources have to be protected. So a big barrier is that many institutions still struggle with an enterprise data management strategy. They have excellent reporting capabilities, but they still have to spend a lot of time curating those data sources, even for reporting. If you think about an AI, whether it's a chatbot or an AI-enabled application, that data has to be correct immediately because these are real-time interactions. So you don't really have time to go back and manipulate the data behind the scenes. It has to be accurate. So there's some concerns there. And so I think it's a lot of the things that we talk about with some of our customers is the importance of having data governance in place, data management tools, data loss prevention tools to make sure that there's not data leakage or data poisoning with some of these models that institutions want to be able to use. So they still have to address some of the things that I think have been problematic for a while. So before they get to the point where they want to be transformational with the use of AI, they really have to address the data issue.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting too that becomes a much more complex challenge as you kind of get across the institution, right? And AI is just sort of a complex version of digital transformation, which we've been talking about for quite a while. Transformative things that you do within a work group are very contained. There's process changes, there's changes in how you create and use data. There might be role differences, but it's very contained in the decision making that you make, and the risks that you incur are doable. Once you start crossing departments, crossing colleges, and kind of getting, really out into the enterprise of the institution, that conversation and the decisions and the collaboration investment that needs to happen is a much more complex and a grander scale. Takes a longer length of time. The guardrails you need to put in place, and access management concerns, like Mike mentioned, and making sure people are seeing the right data in the right time and the right place for the right purpose becomes really, really important. And institutions are definitely understanding this, but it's difficult work that can use momentum from experts in the field.
Mm-hmm. All right, Janet, well, I know that, that also came up in our conversation with Jessie. So I want to kind of go back to, we've got another clip of that, her comments on this. So let's take a look at that too.
One of the challenges that higher education has that I think is a little bit more difficult in this space than in the private sector is data curation, data hygiene, data classification, and data literacy. The basis of good and ethical artificial intelligence is certainly the data upon which it is trained. And I think that this may be a tremendous opportunity for our industry to start really thinking differently about data management, data governance, and data hygiene, because there are not only ethical implications, but accuracy implications.
Right.
And many higher education institutions don't have data definitions that are the same across different schools and colleges. They don't have data hygiene practices that are the same. Data curation and data aging. When do we get rid of those data? And this could be an incredible opportunity to take the concerning parts of generative AI, meaning biases, inaccuracies, security, and use that as a momentum builder to really take data to the next level, which is the foundational platform to do the incredible things that generate AI. I'd love to see someone who's an expert in the data space start to think about how you might use these tools to identify data and fix it in real time.
Okay, so one thing I would think about as well is that universities probably have the opportunity to learn about how other industries, healthcare, financial services, and so forth, some of the leaders in AI are utilizing AI in their businesses. Are there any cross-industry best practices that you think universities are learning from and leaning into and bringing into this space?
Yeah, I think the use cases in higher ed are very similar to those in other industries. I mean, if you think about again, all of the areas of engagement on a college campus. You have students, faculty, staff. There's different personas that manifest themselves through those experiences. You have sports fans. You have community folks that come on to campuses for lecture series, those kinds of things. So I think many of the use cases are the same, but I think really where higher ed can learn more from other industries is in the adoption of AI. Having like a center of excellence approach, dedicated resources, funding that's allocated for AI programs and projects. To have a successful AI implementation, it really cannot be done in the cracks and corners. I mean, it can't be someone's part-time job. I think it's going to require a lot of leadership. So if you look at companies that have been very successful with their AI programs, they've been very intentional in the way that they roll those programs out. Prioritizing use cases. Which use cases are going to benefit the institution the best, benefit the students from an engagement perspective, helping them navigate through their journeys, helping the faculty and staff become more efficient with supporting those students, prioritizing those use cases, putting funding sources and dedicated teams in place so that those programs are successful is really critical. And I think this is a team sport. This has, because higher ed can be so decentralized with many units kind of operating autonomously and in silos, it's going to be really important for higher ed to come together around this AI road mapping strategy and put those things in place together, bringing in compliance, audit, the folks from the research areas, from the classroom areas, getting students involved One of the things that we also heard from Jesse was the need to have a student-centered approach to AI. I mean, students are the biggest stakeholders on campus, so we certainly need to involve students in understanding what use cases would most benefit them as well.
Yeah, I would do a yes and to that. I think, like Mike mentioned, universities are just sort of mini cities and a microcosm of so many different industries. They have dining, they can look at the retail industry and see what's happening in retail. They can look at hospitality for cues in transportation, housing to help their res life. There's so many ways that they can just kind of draw and watch the marketplace. I think also being open and more intentional about looking at how roles and responsibilities and jobs might change. Jesse also talks about how the work might change. There might be changes to roles that the university has. There might be new skill sets. There might be roles they didn't think about now that they have to figure out, how does that sort of fit in their day-to-day environment. So kind of thinking holistically, like other industries are doing now, is certainly helpful. And higher ed tends to do a good job of that already. Start looking around to see what's happening with their peer sets and within their space.
Okay, last question for you. I often like to ask our experts to peer into the future a little bit. So if we look out 3 years, 5 years, what do you think are the AI technologies or trends that are really going to make a difference in the higher education space?
So I think looking further out, we've talked to institutions about this question, like what do you expect to see from AI? What are the expectations? What are the more transformative use cases? And I think, again, putting the student in the center of that conversation, imagine a student is evaluating a university from an admissions perspective, where an AI assistant is joining that journey with the student from the very beginning, from the time that they're looking to apply for admissions. And then that student has that digital assistant, that AI assistant that follows their journey throughout every engagement, through their classes, through their extracurricular activities, perhaps even, and this is, again, gets more into the risk of the data sources behind the scenes, but also helps the student with their mental health issues as they navigate through the college experience as well. Especially post-pandemic, we're seeing a lot of students who still struggle with loneliness and depression, and so there's some mental health issues that are plaguing students. And so I think having that digital assistant that can be prescriptive, but also can alert university administration when something might appear a little bit off, like the student was engaging fine for the first 2 or 3 semesters, and all of a sudden they stopped going to the library, they stopped participating in their clubs, they stopped meeting with their advisors. So having early indications and early warnings throughout a student's journey is something that universities are really looking forward to being able to take advantage of. And for some of the larger institutions that may have tens of thousands of students, they frankly don't have the staff or the resources to give each student that personalized care and attention that they need to be successful throughout their journey. So they're really expecting AI to help offset some of the challenges that they've had around having that personalized, customized experience, but at scale for each individual student that comes to the institution. I think that's a very exciting type of use case where, again, it's like having that kind of AI on your shoulder throughout your entire journey at the institution to kind of help navigate you through some of the complexities, some of the challenges, and some of the struggles that students may have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's, and yes, and to all of that. What's exciting about this space is I don't think many of us knew what AI is going to look like next year, not to mention 3 to 5 years, right? And so more in the preparation for change, just putting together the collaborative structures and environments, sandboxes, places for students to try things out, for researchers to try different things out and collaborate and share their ideas, explore different avenues. Some are not going to work, some may work, and just having environments where there's this space for the conversation is really important. I think a lot of institutions too, I'm hearing are excited in how they can start to use their spaces more effectively in smarter ways, not just the administrative understanding how space is occupied and how it's not, but where are students going? What's the impact of that? And we'll talk some about this in our conversation with our student in that expert series. That one's going to be a fun one as well.
Cool.
But knowing the student behaviors and how that's impacting their success and their GPAs, and identifying those patterns, and then being able to coach and make those resources and encourage those behaviors with other students, I think is a really exciting thread to pull on. So there's some really, really neat things to come that we're looking forward to, helping our institutions get momentum around.
Yeah. You know, Matt, one of the things that we haven't talked about is AI in the security space. And I think there's a lot of concern right now around the security, the information security areas where they recognize that the threat attackers and the bad actors are starting to use AI to become more sophisticated with their attacks. And higher institutions are big targets. They know that there's a lot of student data, there's a lot of PII, there's a lot of financial data, there's a lot of intellectual property, some of which could be considered national security type information. So they're big targets. And so the information security departments definitely have an obligation and a responsibility to secure their environments. And they know that AI is being used. So how will they be able to use AI to help detect, respond, and hopefully thwart some of those attacks? So, I mean, at some point it may, in the future, it may be AI versus AI, and whoever has the best AI wins. Could be like the old spy versus spy cartoon, where it's AI versus AI now. But that's definitely a big consideration, AI in the security space within higher ed. There's a lot of attention and even funding being allocated towards that.
Yeah, that's a great point. Information security and physical security and campus security. There's so much opportunity. There's, just in recent times, so many instances of where campuses could have taken an action more quickly, preventative action, immediate actions, had they had a few more dots put together ahead of time and predictively. So definitely some important considerations in the campus and physical security realm there as well that institutions are looking forward to.
Yeah,
that's a great point.
Yeah. Well, and Mike, I know that we've got, Janet too, we've got a large security practice here at WWT that's helping out with those issues for higher ed and lots of other industries as well. But yeah, there's a lot of exciting opportunity there. There's absolutely some risks, but plenty to come in higher education with respect to artificial intelligence. Well, listen, thank you both for being here today. Enjoyed spending time with you.
Likewise. Thank you so much, Matt, for having us. We really enjoyed it and hope this is meaningful to all the folks that end up watching this.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us as well. Again, this is one episode in a 4-part series we have on higher education. As Janet mentioned, there's another one out there in which we talk with a student and some others for you to check out too. That and much more video content is out on WWT.com. You can watch on demand all that at any time. Checking the calendar for stuff that's coming up. So please do that. And we always like to hear your feedback. So if you get that email survey, please drop us some replies to that, or just drop us an email and let us know how we did today. We'd love to hear from you. And with that, we'll wrap up today's session. Thank you for coming, and we'll see you next time.